If I were buying a house here in Dallas today, here's exactly what I would do. And I'm not just saying this as a realtor, but someone who's seen the market shift and change within the past few years. Buyers think that they can just go find their perfect dream home, but that's really not the case. It really has to do with the timing, the market, how well you negotiate, and so many other factors. And in this video, I'm gonna share with you exactly what I would do if I were to buy a house in Dallas today. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or you're relocating to Dallas, Texas, I promise you'll walk away with some real strategies you can use today. And make sure to stick to the very end because the last two are my very favorite. So let's get right to it. The very first point I want to talk about is you gotta know the market. This is crucial, my friends, because if you don't know the market, you can literally lose thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. Let's say, for example, you're in a buyer's market and there's a house that's listed for $500,000 and you decide to put in an offer at $500,000. Chances are seller is going to accept that price because it is a buyer's market. Of course, depending on the other terms that you put in the offer for. So let's say, for example, you put in offer $500,000, you just lost thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars by not negotiating. This is why it's very important to know the market. For example, during the COVID era, we saw in the very beginning of COVID, house prices were like dropping. They were low. Nobody wanted to go out there, view homes. Nobody wanted to go look at homes. And so we were in a very strong buyer's market. But then a few months into COVID, it just all of a sudden just shifted into a seller's market and we saw multiple offer situation. We saw open houses where lines were people were lined up outside of the front door, around the street, around the house, wrapping around their house. So many people, 20, 30, 40, 50 people waiting in line. It was a crazy market and it just shifted within like a month or so, within, of course, in a few months from the beginning, but like within that transition, it shifted so quickly. This is why it's so important that you understand the market. Now, let's say, for example, we look at last month's data of the market. Those statistics may not be valid for today. This is why I study the market of last month's, but that may not be, that is important for today. Because like I said, the market shifts so quickly at times. And this is why, for me as a real estate agent, when I go out and show people homes, I know exactly what the market is like because we put in offers. I know what the traffic is like. I know what the offer situation is like. I know if it's in a buyer situation, if there's multiple offers for a seller's market or not. So those things, and I also know how much I can negotiate for my clients. This is very important because that is a leverage that we can bring for our clients. And so this is why you got to know the market. So my experience every single day going out there on the field showing clients homes is definitely a help to know the market. You also have to know the interest rates because the interest rates are going to definitely make that into a seller's market or into a buyer's market. Not all the time, but it can definitely make a huge impact. So for myself, I'm not just a realtor, I'm a loan officer as well. So I understand what the interest rates are like all the time. So if you want to work with us, feel free to call, text, email us, whatever you prefer. We're happy to help you move to Dallas, Texas. We're going to definitely help you out with knowing what the market is like, know the interest rate, what it's like, and to be able to kind of guide you from A to Z throughout the whole process. The second thing I want to talk about is where do I start? Because this is very important. Some people, they start off looking at homes, but really that's not where you should start off. You should actually start off with the loan process. Now, if you are all cash, you don't need a loan, then it doesn't matter. But if you need a loan, you gotta know how much of a loan you can get. Because let's say, for example, you want to look for homes that are at the $600,000 property price point, but your loan amount can only be up to like, let's say $500,000. So you got to know how much you qualify for before you can go for homes. And so, like I said, as a loan officer, I can kind of help you A to Z to kind of give you a ballpark figure as to how much we can start looking for homes. And then once you know your loan amount, you also want to start looking for that neighborhood. Now, the neighborhood is very important because you don't want to just go into any neighborhood and then regret it later down the line. For example, for us, we decided to look for a neighborhood for a school for our daughter. Now, this was before our daughter was even born. Isn't that crazy? My wife was pregnant and we decided we need to find a school that will be suitable for our kiddo. Now, we didn't know how long 5 to 6 years would take for her to get to kindergarten, but this is where we were like, you know what? we want to look for a house, and we look for a house near a school that we want to center to, and we're looking to the whole neighborhood. We're looking at the HOA, we're looking at the community, because you have to know that when you buy a house, you're not just buying that house, you're buying that neighborhood, you're buying that community. And so this is very important. Yes, you are in a sense buying your neighbors as well, not your neighbor's house, but obviously you got to live near your neighbors. So you got to want to know that you can obviously live around those kind of people that you are looking for that area. So this is very important. So for us, when we went to go find a house, we found a house around our school area for our kiddo to go, and then we found the neighborhood that we liked, as well as the HOA, the community. We thought this is a great community. We definitely want to raise our kid here in this area. So that is the next step that you need to do, is you got to find a good neighborhood. Now, the next question is, what should I avoid? This is important because you don't want to get too emotionally attached. Now, a lot of people, and that's normal, when you go look for a house, you're like, oh my goodness, I love this home. This is the perfect home. This is the kitchen that I dreamed of. This is the perfect, the ceiling, the vaulted ceiling I was looking for. These are the perfect number of bedrooms I was looking for, the backyard. Oh, this is, you get it, right? We all get how we love that dream home. But it's very important not to get too emotionally attached. The reason I say this is because there are so many obstacles that we have to overcome up until closing. Now, one of the main obstacles has to do with inspection. You can love the house, but inspection time comes and all these issues come with the property, and you're just like, oh my goodness, what do I do, Daniel? And this is where I have to be logical with you. I'm not going to be emotional with you. I'm going to be very logical. I'm going to say, okay, let's use our brain. Is this going to be a good place that we should live in? Because there's all these issues. I know you love the house, so let's put those emotions aside, but let's think logically. So the very first thing that you want to do, that you want to avoid, is don't get too emotionally attached with the houses that you look at. Another thing you want to avoid is not overstretch your budget just because the market is hot. Like I said, during COVID, it was a crazy market. People were putting like tens of thousands, $50,000 above list price. Sellers loved it, but sellers who had to buy another house, they had to do the same thing, right? But investors who had multiple homes that wanted to just sell their house, they were the ones that really loved it. But buyers, we get so excited over a house, and we get so kind of like anxious that we got to get this house, and it's a crazy market, and then everybody overpays. Now look what happened during COVID. Everybody overpaid then, and today we're thinking like that was like years ago. What about today? The house prices from then and now, roughly the same, give or take, right? So not too much of a difference from then now, because everybody overpaid at that time. And so that is why you want to be very careful not to overspend from your budget originally. The next thing you want to avoid is to ignore inspection red flags. What do I mean? Once we go under contract, we do an inspection, and during the inspection, it's going to have a lot of problems. Every property has a lot of issues. The older the home, the more issues the house is going to have. But what I'm talking about are like those major issues. Let's say, for example, foundation, HVAC, let's say roofing issues, whatever those major issues may be, you definitely want to have to think logically through this whole process, because most likely you have become emotionally attached. I said don't become emotionally attached, but you probably did. It's too late, right? But you don't want to become too emotionally attached. So be very careful. You got to think this logically. And so what I do with my clients is whenever I go view a house, I take a look myself. I'm no inspector. I'm not a professional inspector, but I've seen enough homes to be able to know kind of, okay, this house might have this problem, this house may not have this problem. On top of that, I carry this foundation equipment. It's yellow. It's this yellow equipment where I just carry with me for buyers. When they want to see a house, I do like a foundation check, just to be able to kind of get a feel. This may have foundation issues or this may not, before we go under contract, before the inspection takes place. Because I don't want my client to go under contract and be like, oh my goodness, this house has foundation issues. So I kind of do my due diligence and kind of look at the house, see what it's like, and kind of carry that equipment with me when buyers want me to take to check out the level of the foundation, I can definitely do that. But again, I'm no professional inspector, but at least I know a little bit about the inspection of the property or the condition of the property. So if it's major issues like foundation, HVAC, plumbing issues, drainage issues, or roof issues, whatever those issues may be, you definitely want to be able to think things logically. So never ignore those inspections with big red flags. And make sure to keep watching, because I said the last two are my favorite and they're going to be very helpful for you. The next point is to look at the long-term resale potential. This is crucial because you can buy a house and you're like, oh my goodness, I love it, and you pay above list price and you are in trouble because later, let's say for example, a few years down the line, you want to sell the house and you're like, Daniel, I can't sell it for what I bought it for, right? And then of course, with all those fees that you have to pay on top of that. And so this is why you have to look at the long-term resale potential. When I look at houses with my clients, I tell them, yeah, I think this house can sell well later down the line, or this house may not be easy to sell. It's easy to buy, but not easy to sell. I always think about my client's perspective, my client's long-term resale potential, because I want to be able to work with my clients for the rest of my life, for the rest of their lives, however long we live. I want to be able to help them buy homes, sell homes, buy homes, sell homes, whatever. If they want to live there for 20 years down the line, help them resell that house. If it's 5 years, help them resell it. This is why it's very important, because I don't want to just help them buy a house. I want them to be able to sell it for even much more than what they bought it for. And so this is why it's very important that when you look for houses, you look for homes that you can resell later down the line. The next point is to prioritize lifestyle, not just the house. What am I talking about? Is when we look for homes, a lot of times when we look for homes, we love the kitchen. The kitchen is so beautiful, or the bedroom, the primary bedroom or the living room is majestic. I just love the kitchen. I love the bedroom. I love the living room. And so we fall in love with that specific house. But like I said, you're not buying just the house, you're buying everything around it. So this is why you got to prioritize the lifestyle. Look around the neighborhoods, look around the community, the HOA, the schools, what's around that area. Are you going to be able to send your kids there? Are you going to be happy with that? What's the commute going to be like? There was one time where my clients, they wanted to buy a house and they were just like going to buy a house because they loved it. I said, I don't know about that, because you're going to regret it. It's a very long drive from work, because I always ask them, okay, what area do you work at? Because I think about Dallas. Dallas land is huge. And when you want to drive from one place to another place, 45 minutes average or so. And if you want to take the toll, then maybe about 30 minutes or so. But it really just depends. Some people will drive 50 minutes or an hour commute to work. And so this is where they're like, oh, you know what? It's okay, Daniel. I just really love the house. And I say, are you really sure about that? I know you love the house, but this is going to be a really long commute to work. And so then they make that decision. And sometimes I try to say, you know what, that's really a lot. Are you going to be okay? And I asked them several times, are you going to be okay? There's this one client, I said that, and they're like, oh, it's going to be okay. They just love the house. I said, okay. 1 year later, they called me. They said, Daniel, man, it's a bit of a far commute for us. What should we do? And I was like, I couldn't say I told you so, right? Because my baby always says to me, I told you so, whenever she's right, which is a lot of times. But I don't want to say that to my clients. But the reality is, you just got to be very careful as to the house you choose, because you don't want to go for just that house. You got to go for that entire neighborhood. Think about all those other factors. The commute to work. Is that a city, that area that you want to live in? Do you hang out in other places more often? Is that drive going to be okay for you? So that's very important when you buy a house. The next one is work with a local expert realtor. Yes, I know what you're thinking, and that's exactly right. You got to find a seasoned expert realtor, and that's where my expertise comes in. I'm going to be straight honest. I don't want to kind of like be all humble or so, but really you got to find a realtor who knows what the market is like, who's always looking at homes, putting in offers, working with buyers, and knowing how to put in these offers to be able to put in the best offer. And so if you want to work with us, feel free to call, text, email us, whatever you prefer. We're happy to help you move to Dallas, Texas. So not just a friend realtor, because a friend realtor can really lose you money. And there's a lot of times when people are like, oh, you know what, I can do everything by myself, and they just kind of do it by themselves, and then they lose thousands, tens of thousands of dollars because they don't know how to negotiate. This is where a local expert realtor is very important. The next point has to do with timing your move. Let's say, for example, you're moving from out of state, then you don't want to look for houses within 1 or 2 months. That could be a bit risky. So you want to look for houses at least, or maybe not look for houses, but at least talk with us or get a feel of what this Dallas city is like. At least about 4 to 6 months, even 8 months in advance is okay. If you want new construction home, that's going to be a lot earlier than that. But pre-existing homes, I'd say about like 6 months, 8 months or so would be a good time frame. So you got to be able to time that move very well. Now, if you don't know how to time it, you can call us, text us, whatever. We're definitely help you out with that. So you got to be able to give yourself enough cushion to be able to make this move as smooth as possible, because the last thing you want to do is be without a house, right? You don't want to be without a house with your kids having to go to school and all that transition. It's going to be a hectic period, because you and I know moving is not easy. It is a crazy time. So time your move very well. And these last two are my favorite. The very first one has to do with do not follow the market hype. And this is anything with like stocks or cryptocurrency, right? Because when people, they follow what all the people are buying, that's when they get themselves into trouble, because later down the line, it drops, right? It dips. And so this is the same with the market. You got to be very careful. Just because everybody is buying doesn't necessarily mean you have to buy. But here's the thing with real estate. Eventually, it may, well, maybe, for example, real estate house prices, they fluctuate, they go up and down. But eventually, at the end of the day, after 5-10 years down the line, real estate market is going to go up. That's what we've seen historically. We've seen that crash in 2008, but here we are, right? Decades later, and we have seen real estate market go up. And so that is why market is going to go up. You don't want to follow the hype just because everybody is doing it, because when you do that, you're going to get caught up into the multiple offer situation where everybody's going crazy, which we had during the COVID area, and people are just kind of regretting that right now. Not all, but there are quite a bit of people who are regretting that. But anyway, so do not always follow the market hype. This is why talk with us. We can never predict the future, but talk with us and we can kind of guide you what the best route is, if this is a great time to buy or not. And the very last point is prioritize what you cannot change. What do I mean by this? Is that when you look for homes, you want to look for homes with like things that you cannot change. For example, things that you can change. Let's say you can repaint the walls, or let's say you can remodel the bathroom or the kitchen or the countertop, whatever it is. Those things are things that you can change. But things that you cannot change the neighborhood. You cannot change the street. You cannot change the school district around that area. Let's say, for example, you want to go into a house where the street is just super noisy. You can't change that. Just because you love the house doesn't mean you should always get it, because think about when you're sleeping every single night. Every night you're having to sleep through that noise. And so this is important, because I had this client one time, we're looking at a condominium in the Dallas area. And when we're looking for that, a lot of these condos are going to be in like these streets where it's very noisy. And so you want to look for a unit that's not like adjacent to the main street. You want to look for a unit that's kind of more inside, away from the main street. And when we were looking, my client, she was like, man, I love this unit, but it's on the main street. And you know what I said? Automatically, I asked her, can you sleep through noise? And she said, no. I said, there's your answer. And so we had to find another unit. It took a little longer to find, but hey, we found one, and now I'm sure she's sleeping very well without having to go through that noise of all those cars honking and all that. So this is very important, that you find a house, not the things you can change, but you find a house, the things that you cannot change, and then the things that you can change, you change it while you're living or even before you move in. And so now you know exactly what you need to do. You need to call us to help you find a home, a neighborhood, everything that is perfect for you. Feel free to reach out to us anytime. If you like this video, make sure to click that like button. If you're not so, make sure to subscribe below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.